And we're live in 3, 2...
Yes, hello.
Now I'm going to have to do the countdown again. And we're live in 3.
Yes, I hear you.
You're a mongrel.
Colin had a problem and a microphone to spare. Thomas took it up and so the podcast went to air. For weeks and months they trolled through every single DVD. They've unwrapped all the ones they can and now they're cellulose free. Now they're cellulose free.
Hello, dear listener, and welcome to Cellulose Free. My name is Colin, and with me as always is my fellow film watcher, compadre and son, Thomas.
Hi, hello.
I have no idea whether that sounded right or not. It just felt like my tongue went in completely the wrong direction then.
I wasn't paying that much attention.
It turned left rather than turned right, and you're not paying attention either. We're in for a good episode. What have you been up to?
The Olympics have begun. So what have you been up to?
So you've had your Men in Lycra yet?
Yeah, I have had some of the Men in Lycra.
Right.
There is other Men in Lycra later.
Yeah.
And then there's Men in Lycra indoors.
Yeah.
And then I think we're done with the Men in Lycra.
There's men and women in Speedos and
Yep.
men and women in whatever you use to do your kayaking up artificial rivers or down artificial rivers.
Typically down.
Sideways across artificial rivers. No, I saw up, down, left, right and...
Occasionally upstream.
Upside down. Which is somewhat concerning.
But largely downstream.
But not in the Seine.
Not in the... well, yes, in the Seine. The triathlons are today, and they are indeed using the Seine.
They got the clearance,
They got the clearance.
Right. The president of France tasted the water. He drank a glass, and then they waited half an hour, and he's still alive, so they're going ahead with the triathlon.
I believe they took a slightly more scientific approach to it.
What can be more scientific than that?
Whether it turns out to be the correct move or not is another thing, because it was raining earlier today.
Who is to say?
But not as heavily as it was at the opening ceremony, which...
They're still drying out the piano.
Not all the pianos. One of them was already on fire, so...
Oh, there was a piano on fire,
yeah, there was
a
piano on fire.
I missed that.
Yeah.
I could not do the 14-hour epic Eurovision on speed. It was...
It was only 4 hours.
Oh,
was,
yeesh.
Yeah.
My.
Yes, did get very bogged down after the Parade of Nations, which it turned out only really marked about halfway through the ceremony.
Now, it's LA next, isn't it?
Yes.
I don't know. I think they're caught between a rock and a hard place in their opening ceremony, in that either way they choose, whether they pull it all back and don't allow acceptance speeches, the orchestra kicks in if the speech goes too long, type of deal, or...
There's only 2 speeches in the ceremony.
Well, all right, but that same treatment with the whole blown-outedness of it all. They'll cut it back to an hour opening ceremony.
They can't. They cannot cut it back to an hour. The Parade of Nations on its own.
They will have to run on. They will stick them on buses that will just fly past, forget the boats. That was a neat idea, but let's up it and stick them in high-powered buses or a train, just a train. A very long train, just have the train go past. A high-speed train. Oh, hang on, it's LA, isn't it? I either do that or they pull out all the stops and try to out Eurovision, the French opening ceremony, and have it go over 4 days.
No.
Mardi Gras style. And
what they're going to do, what we know that they're going to do, because they've told us that's what they're going to do, is they're going to split the ceremony between 2 stadiums at...
Good.
Yeah.
Okay, that sounds like segregation to me.
One of which being the Memorial Coliseum that they used some years ago when they last hosted, and the
Yeah.
other one being a somewhat newer stadium.
Yeah, it actually feels like only yesterday that it was at LA, but I guess it wasn't. I guess it was a little while longer than that.
Yeah, I wasn't around, I don't remember it.
Yeah, I do. And the faux Colosseum and, yeah. Anyway, so that is all you've been doing.
Yeah. It turns out that the Tour de France runs for, 4-5 hours every night.
Yeah,
The Olympics run all the Paris day. So,
forever.
yeah, it just keeps going. And eventually I have to go to bed, and they're still going.
Well, you should get the program for the day and get a big marker, print it out physically and say, I want to watch that. I don't want to watch the equestrian because I don't like horses and what they do to them. I'm not going to watch the boxing. I'm not going to watch the underwater basket weaving.
Oh, but this might be the last opportunity you get to see the boxing.
Oh, they are talking about getting rid of boxing, are they?
It's currently off the program for LA.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Wow.
So
It opens it right up to having cannon firing again.
So the federation that was in charge of boxing, the IOC decided not to have relations with them anymore.
Yeah.
And a good chunk of the countries involved in that original federation are still involved in that federation and desperately clinging on to the idea that maybe this federation might turn things around, in spite of all evidence to the contrary. And a competing federation, World Boxing, has been formed, which has very few countries involved, and so the IOC can't hand it off to them either.
Right.
So these past two Olympics, they've been running the boxing themselves, and they've decided they don't want to do that anymore. And so, in lieu of any results with World Boxing, it's just not going to happen anymore.
Well, that's a bit of a punch on the chin, isn't it?
Yeah.
Good.
I'm
glad, quite frankly. Horrible sport.
It's the one elimination sport on the entire Olympic calendar that doesn't have a bronze medal match. Because if you were to get into a bronze medal match, you've already been punched quite hard.
Yes.
There are other combat sports that also give out 2 bronze medals, but they're less dangerous, and they do so by way of having 2 bronze medal matches.
Yep. Okay, so I'm just trying to think of other things that are jelly wrestling. There we go.
No, I have everything that I want to get to on my calendar, and I'm still probably going to miss half of it.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh. If only there was some way of seeing things not live.
That would require purchasing Stan Sport, which is $15 on top of the already $12 a month baseline.
That's redonkulous. Absolutely redonkulous.
Because 9now's selection of full replays is spotty.
Yes.
You can guarantee it if an Australian is in the final. Anything else?
Yeah. So if you're wanting to watch your Scandinavian men in lycra, you're a bit stuck, really.
Yeah. Fortunately, I think most of the things that I do want to see are on at a time when I would normally be awake. It's just that there's so much sport happening that it all overlaps, and so you miss stuff anyway.
Basically, there's too much sport. Halve the sport. We're going to reduce the opening ceremony down to an hour, and there's only going to be 3 sports. That's it. Yep. Jelly wrestling, cannon firing, and firemen putting out fires. Go back to the basics. Good. Anything else you've been up to?
No.
No.
What have you been up to?
What have I been up to? I did the traditional fortnightly donate plasma. Now, just for a clarification to our dear listeners worldwide, in Australia, blood and plasma and blood product donations, they're not paid. So one would think that the nature of people who, and I'm not trying to blow my own trumpet here, but it's, what's the word I'm looking for? You're not in it for financial means. So what's the opposite of that? Altruistic? Is it altruism?
Yeah.
Anyway, well, there are certain reasons why I do it. One of the reasons being I'm a pretty good bleeder, so That works well. They have no problem finding a vein. In fact, they call me Bubble Man because I've got this little bubble, which may as well just be a target right on my left arm that they just pop the needle in, and it works every time. But anyway, so in Australia, no financial incentive. It's purely voluntary. The downside of that, if there is a downside, we produce nowhere near enough. Our production is less than the demand in Australia, so we're having to import stuff. And some of that becomes morally questionable in that there are certainly countries that drag it out of your arm at a very, very regular rate. And it is well documented that it also attracts the very low income earners. And it becomes a bit of a milking machine there. And, I've got no qualms about... It just seems like an odd thing to make a living off. Anyway. But going back to the type of people that you would think it would bring in to these centres in Australia, I went in yesterday and you go through a little pre-questionnaire and then a little interview that goes through the questionnaire. They check your pulse and check your blood pressure and check your hemoglobin levels and ask you various questions. Well, I went in there, they call your name, went in, and the girl dealing with me said, "So how's your day been?" And I said, "It's good." And I said, "And it's even better because I'm in my happy place. I really enjoy this." And she basically burst into tears. And she said, "Oh, that has made my day because this morning has been horrible. We've had not one but 2 clients this morning who were rude and abusive." And I'm thinking, this is just crazy. Even though I've seen in the lift that goes up to this centre, it has a big sign inside the lift saying, "Please be polite and courteous to our staff. They're not here to be abused." And you're thinking, it's kind of weird that you need to have that type of sign in a place that you would think is just full of kindness. And there's the same sign inside each of these interview booths. But no, this girl had an absolutely awful morning, being abused by people who are there to freely donate. It's just really strange. So it made her day. She was much cheerified and we had a good joke. And, the question about, have you been in prison in the last 6 months and all that kind of stuff. We started making shivs out of credit cards. And the conversation got really, really weird, but I think it just made a day. It possibly helped that I hadn't taken my meds that morning, so I was a bit manic. And, but strange. People are strange. I'm strange, I admit that, but I can't imagine being rude to the staff in a place like that. It's just, I can't imagine being rude to staff. It's having been in retail for most of my life and being at the brunt of just rude arrogance. And
I am unfortunately often reminded that the default state of humanity is not kindness. It's every person for themselves.
Yeah. Well, that gets to my next little story before we get into the film, was that I finally decided my track pants that I wear around home, that I slob around in, were threadbare enough that I really needed to replace them. And so I went into my usual place and found a pair and went through the unexpected person in the bagging area type of... Well, I was unexpected because it was the place that I worked at for 25 years, and so you've got to run the gauntlet of past staff members who want to ask what you've been up to. And I mean, lovely people. I do not miss the place at all, but wonderful people. But paid for my stuff, I grabbed another couple of things and went out the front door after having my bags checked and went to stuff these track pants into my backpack. And I was thinking, what's that? There was a solid-ish object in the middle of these track pants. I thought... And so I rummaged around and dragged out this bright fluoro pink iPhone cover that I guess somebody had decided that they were going to try and steal, and we're going to maybe steal the track pants that I'm currently wearing as well, but got spotted and so hung them up on the rack or something. So had to duck back in and say, look, these were in the pockets of the track pants, and had a bit of a laugh. And yeah, people are strange.
Yeah.
Speaking of strangeness, we have a movie to watch.
We do.
That you have not seen.
I haven't.
That I do not think I have seen all the way through. There are certainly segments of it that are quite famous. Certainly famous to people of my generation.
Mm-hmm.
I was 18 when this came out, and so certain lines got a lot of traction on the advertising, so everyone knew certain lines and certain actions and certain things from this film. But I think the only time I possibly watched it was at a big sleepover where not a lot of sleep was happening, a lot of talking was happening, and not a lot of paying attention to movies was
So a sleepover.
happening. Yeah, so a sleepover, where you get condemned if you actually sleep. Yeah. So this is going to be a bit of an eye-opener for me as well.
Mm-hmm.
Recommended in a roundabout sort of way by one of our dear listeners, and that film being
Three Amigos.
All the other kids have asked, what are we watching? And as soon as I mentioned it, the youngest son said, "Oh, that's racist." And yes, I suspect
Yeah, probably.
it is going to be well and truly. It's going to show its age in that direction.
We've started from a position of the title including the inverse exclamation mark at the start.
Yes. The Spanish are actually very smart with that clever punctuation, having the exclamation mark at the beginning of an exclamation and closing it with a upright exclamation. I think we should do that. But yes, cultural appropriation. It is going to be what it is.
Yeah.
I'm going to go in with eyes wide open and hope that we're going to enjoy it. What is it all about, if you would be so kind?
When a small Mexican village is terrorized by a notorious outlaw, a desperate senorita calls upon the only heroes she knows, the legendary Three Amigos. Known by all as fearless freedom fighters, these courageous cowboys are really just film stars, and the only fighting they've ever done is on a movie set. But when the outlaws attack, the Amigos discover that the banditos and their bullets are all too real. Now, the trio must save the village and become true heroes, or hang up their spurs in shame forever.
Now, it was dear listener Jeff who recommended this, with the suggestion that the plot to this sounds somewhat familiar. And he connected it with the episode that we recorded a couple of weeks back for Galaxy Quest, and I can certainly, from listening to that plot synopsis, see where he's coming from. So it'll be interesting to watch.
I suspect the form of it might be different.
We shall see. Thomas is going to open the case. He's going to take the disc out. Well, that was Foley for you, wasn't it? Thomas did not take the disc out.
Well, I have no reason to take it out right now.
Foleyed the disc out. He's going to put it in the machine. We're going to watch this film, and then we're going to come back and talk about it. So we shall catch you on the flip side.
Turn to side B.
Arriba.
No. No.
No. Sorry. I was a bit of a mongrel.
Yeah.
How do you say mongrel in Spanish? Let's move on.
Yeah, let's.
So what did you think?
You know what?
What's that?
That could have been a lot worse.
It could have been a lot worse.
Yeah. It's certainly a lot less bitty than similar works.
Uh-huh.
Spaceballs, for example, is a very bitty film.
Yeah, I was certainly registering that it, plot-wise and direction-wise, was a Western film,
Yes.
just notched up a bit
Yeah.
to the absurd, and only occasionally going to the absurd. When you've got the singing animals and the... But if you did notch it back down, then it ticks all the boxes for a B-grade Western.
Yeah.
And so within the confines of the genre, it fit.
Yeah.
Whereas Spaceballs...
We're jumping from a one-joke scene to another probably unrelated but semi-tied together scene.
Yeah. And also there's that stretching of, is this being done for the joke? Mm-hmm. Did the joke exist first, and now we've got to wrap a vaguely science fiction thread around it?
And like Hot Shots, very, very bad about that.
Yeah.
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 But it all sort of strings together.
Yeah.
It is a plot that works.
Yeah. And when you say together, I did find the first half quite a bit of a slog.
Yeah.
The pacing to get to the payoff was possibly a little longer than needed to be.
We need less time before the villagers realise just how much of a scrap they've got themselves into.
Yeah, so certainly could have trimmed probably a good 15 minutes out of it and would have made it a tighter film.
Yeah.
Even scenes themselves that held shots for just a little longer than... And that may well be of its time rather than... I don't know. I just wanted to gallop a little more at the beginning. But finally... The second half, I confess, much like you, that could have been worse.
Yeah.
Was the thought while I was sitting there in that second half, and also registering that I do have a smile on my face.
Yeah.
Despite me being really concerned that this isn't working for me, it did definitely begin to and paid off.
I think another problem that the first half has is... So the film as a whole isn't particularly bitty, but the first half is the bittier part of it.
Yeah. And it did have a little bit of work to do in setting that, it's in this time period, and this is why this can happen. So the in-story within the outer story, if that makes any sense at all. What I did find interesting was, and I think it comes back to it was well seated within the genre, was growing up as a kid watching a show called The Cisco Kid, which was a number of years prior to my age watching it. They were just reruns of reruns. But all of these situations could well have sat within The Cisco Kid, which was your afternoon kids' TV show with lots of shootings and cowboys and running around, and the two heroes at the end riding off into the sunset each time. So that familiarity was well and truly there and completely not out of place. It was familiar. I did, right at the beginning, when we put the disc in, it instantly came up with the language options, and I did ask whether we shall watch it in Castellano.
Which I hadn't realised was one of the apparently multiple names for the Spanish language.
Yeah, I was a bit stunned. I thought you were aware of that.
No. This has now come up, because all the other discs that I've noticed it's Espanol.
Characters. I don't know how well you remember Romancing the Stone at all.
I don't.
You don't at all? Do you remember a guy with a Spanish accent who had his burro, and they were going to borrow it, and it turned out to be a big chunky four-wheel drive, and that was his burro? No. Okay. Well, it was the same actor who played El Guapo. I'm thinking, I know that face, and the expressions, it was cool to see him. It was also cool and, again, well-seated within the genre to have the eagle screeches, the cliched stock standard sound effect that's used in all of these movies, the particular eagle screech that is on record 47, track 3 of the cliched.
The one that's always used for a different bird than was actually recorded.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So much so that now when people hear the actual sound of these birds, no, they don't sound like that. And I was glad there was a shooting star during that scene with the campfire, and it threw me right back to, well, a number of films, but in fact it threw me back to the Muppet movie. Mm-hmm. When there's a scene where they're out in the desert and singing a song, and then the shooting star in the background. I was just waiting for it. And with the painted background such as it was, I thought for a while there I was going to be disappointed. But then the camera moved up a bit and exposed more starry sky and allowed for that shooting star to go across. That was good.
Directed by John Landis.
Yeah.
While the film was being edited, was in court over the Twilight Zone movie tragedy.
Yeah.
Apparently, Chevy Chase, as he tends to do, would not let that die on the set of Three Amigos, and just ribbing Landis.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
That's bad taste. That's really bad taste. I did notice in the credits at the end, it said, read the novel from Paper Jacks. And I don't know how well it would translate as a novel.
Well, I'm not paying $200 to find out.
Oh, you're joking. Oh, good grief. I should point out that I do have on the shelf the soundtrack to The Twilight Zone on vinyl. Wonder how much is that worth, Thomas?
Could you say again what exactly it is that I'm looking for?
You're looking for the movie, The Twilight Zone.
The movie soundtrack.
Yes.
Pick it up on eBay for $30. Used, obviously.
Yeah, well, yes, obviously. Okay, so not to... oh, well. Mind you, I did not pay $30 for it. It was in the bargain bin when I was a kid. It was one of the first records I bought, actually.
Right.
With my own pocket money. But I digress.
Yes.
And I look at the plethora of notes. Plethora. What is the meaning of the word plethora of notes? I have nothing else. Do you have anything else? You're trying to find whether the novel's available on Kindle.
No, I'm just pulling up a dictionary definition of plethora. I know what plethora means, obviously. But a large or excessive amount of something. And that was indeed a large or excessive amount of piñatas.
It was. It was a plethora of piñatas.
I don't think they did anything with, really. You know, they said that there were a bunch of goodies in the piñatas.
Yes.
And then all the piñatas stayed up, basically, the entire
apart from the
time.
one that the German shot to demonstrate his shooting ability. And it was a major plot device for them to...
Oh, yeah.
What I did like, though, was that the raising of those piñatas was very physically real.
Yes.
The mechanisms to raise it appeared realistic, that it was being done by the actors.
Yeah, I think as well as the low bittiness, it's not anachronistic.
No.
The film.
No.
It stays in its place.
Yeah, and it also, the flack that I got as far as it being racist, I've certainly found the Cisco Kid had far more racist stereotypes in it, looking back. I'm completely unaware of them as a kid, but they were certainly there. And of the same time, a couple of decades later maybe, there was a show called F Troop that I absolutely loved. It's set on a frontier army fort, but the racist stereotypes and that, absolutely shocking. It's
still a little willing to engage in stereotype,
yep.
but not terribly so.
No. I sometimes feel like the people that they're getting to act mocking their own societal tropes, I guess, that can be really, really uncomfortable looking at it. And there were very, very rare moments in this film where I felt anywhere near like that.
I guess, like a soft thumbs up?
Yeah, I must... and certainly the first 20 minutes especially, I'm thinking, this isn't quite as funny, I guess, as I was expecting. And it wasn't belly laugh after belly laugh after belly laugh, but there were some set pieces that just emerged Up until they happened, they weren't set up as set pieces. Does that make sense? I do. The only other thing that I found that had me hanging was there was quite literally a Chekhov's gun situation, and I don't think that paid off. You know, the buying of these new special guns, and it just didn't feel like... But it did bring the plane, and the plane, I guess, became Chekhov's gun in that situation rather than the delivery of the guns.
Yeah.
All right. Anything else you wish to say about Three Amigos?
No.
All right, then. We shall move on, then.
The following segment has no title. Thank you.
Okay, we will start on Discord with Entuosferatu.
Hi, Entuosferatu.
My first reference for Planet of the Apes 1967 was definitely the end of Spaceballs. I haven't seen any of them, modern or the original, though.
Okay, all right.
I definitely recommend the modern trilogy.
Yeah.
I haven't seen the 2001, was it?
Yeah, 2001, I think. Yeah, I'm thinking 2001.
Yeah.
Tim Burton.
There we go, Tim Burton. I was going to say Tim Burton, but then I couldn't remember the words Tim Burton.
Yeah. Yeah. We might have to have a visit of that, maybe. Yeah. Anyway.
We'll circle back to that.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah. Pick a film for next week so we can watch the Olympics.
Yes. No, I'm not going to watch the Olympics. I am going to start transferring the files as soon as we've stopped recording and do a bit of a audio clean and then maybe start editing a bit.
Yeah.
So.
I quite like the Three Amigos, so I'll be interested to hear what you think. I think it manages to be a good almost Mel Brooks style almost parody. The singing bush.
We forgot to mention the singing bush.
That's Randy Newman as the singing bush.
Yeah. I was expecting them to shoot the singing bush by the end of that scene.
That is the most bit that the film gets.
Yeah.
Because that has absolutely nothing to do with anything else that is going on in the film.
Yeah. It was quite a bizarre detour.
Why is there an invisible swordsman?
Yeah.
What are we doing here?
The only explanation that I have is the quest motif and playing on that, but quite bizarre.
And an actual Western pretty successfully, and it's very quotable. Although I am now struggling to come up with quotes.
There is the physical quote.
Yeah. Though as I found out, the home-taped VHS version that I watched growing up was the TV cut, which changed some of the jokes.
Yeah. I had read this just prior to watching the film, and there were certainly some jokes that I suspect would not have made it to the TV cut. Yeah.
Steve Martin and Alfonso Arau, who is also great in Romancing the Stone, are delightful. Steve Martin, now perhaps in these days more notable for his banjo advocacy.
Quite bizarre.
Yeah.
But he's incredible.
Oh, yeah.
On the banjo. I think he played it again in the Muppet movie. Did he play the... he was certainly the waiter.
Yes.
So I could be completely making up the whole banjo thing. I can't see how he would have segued from being a quite rude waiter to playing the banjo. So I'm not feeling confident about that anymore.
Might have been on The Muppet Show.
Yes. That's where it was.
Closing number of 208.
I knew there was a Muppet Banjo Steve Martin connection. Thank you for that, Thomas.
And the cameo of Mantegna Hartman Lovitz. There is some Saturday Night Live blood running through this film.
Very much so.
And unsurprisingly, Lorne Michaels is a producer.
Yeah. I must confess that certainly growing up here in Australia, the whole Saturday Night Live environment, crew, what have you, was far more felt from films like this and spin-off characters than actually experiencing Saturday Night Live. Yep. My first exposure with Coneheads was watching the movie Coneheads, and so did not have the backstory at all. I think that was a Saturday Night Live recurring skit characters.
Yeah.
There will be a segment of our audience going, "Oh my goodness, what a way to start your exposure to coneheads."
1, 2,
Just watching the actual movie.
11 SNL sketches.
Okay.
Yeah.
There we go.
Before eventually appearing in a film in 1993, some 14 years after their last sketch.
Yeah, go figure.
It was a box office disaster.
It was.
Yeah.
Well, it was a disaster of a film, really. I did come out of there going, I think I really missed something. But from all evidence from box office, no, it wasn't just me.
The actors make sense given the writers, Lorne Michaels, and I have forgot. Randy Newman actually has a writing credit on this film, in addition to his songwriting.
Yep, and playing the...
Yeah, and playing the singing bush. We will go over to Twitter with Angel.
Hi, Angel.
Who says, when last episode came out, I kept telling myself, oh, I have an extra week to leave a comment, I'll get to it eventually. Evidently, I did not.
No, for shame. There was a gap in that episode. An angel-sized gap in that episode.
There is no obligation to contribute.
Absolutely not. No.
Which will take us up to the guesses.
It will.
First, from Angel, we have Plun et Ape.
Plun et Ape. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
PLNETAPE. Or possibly Plun Etap, which is to say Plun Stage. I've got tour on the mind still, just a little. And also we're in France, where stages are still called Etaps, even in the Olympics. And from M, we have Plunet.
Oh, hang on.
And from M.
Hang on. All right. Sorry.
And from M.
Hi, M.
We have Plunet Apes. One of those is correct.
PLNTAPES. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
One of those is correct.
It is. They're very similar.
They are.
But one is correct, one is not.
And the correct one belongs to M. Congratulations.
Well done. Have a non...
Have an arbitrary point.
Have one of those things that is a point.
It's arbitrary, and it's a point.
It is. Thank you, Tim Burton.
Would you mind showing me what you've got over there?
I have. Oh, yes. I have that.
Nobody is going to get
No.
Not least of which because you have put a character in there that could not even reasonably be considered to be in the title of the film.
I don't know what you mean.
There's 7 reasonable characters in there.
There is.
And at the front, there's an unreasonable character.
There is. But if you say it out loud, it works. Anyway, please, feel free to guess what this week's file name is.
Yep.
And
make any other sort of contribution, because it's probably the only good acknowledgement you're going to get out of this one.
That's harsh.
And also film suggestions, always welcome.
Yep.
Go ahead.
Today's episode was a suggestion of sorts.
Yep.
Thanks, Jeff. We're still grinning, actually.
Yeah.
So that's good. All right, then. We shall move on, then.
We shall.
Pick a film for next week so we can go to bed.
And it's your turn.
Gee, I wonder what I'm going to pick.
Oh.
It's impossible to say.
It was a movie that came out in 2001.
Oh, but you see, I'm not sure I want to do that one.
Oh, okay. Oh,
maybe I want to go even further back.
Oh, okay.
Because
you're not going to make this episodic, are you?
I might make this episodic, because I don't really have any other particular ideas at the moment.
Okay.
And the alternative is, going to the random number generator, which is also a perfectly valid choice.
It is. We could have a spin-off series called The Monkeys.
But I feel like things just aren't blown up enough yet, and we should dig into that some more.
Okay. All right.
Which will take us to 1970.
It will.
Where we find ourselves beneath the Planet of the Apes.
Oh boy. Okay, cool. Cool. I look forward to it. Next week, we shall be watching
Beneath
the Planet of the Apes, the 1970 sequel to the 1968 movie The Planet of the Apes. Thomas, would you tell our dear listener what the plot synopsis is?
An astronaut, searching for a fellow astronaut, stumbles on an underground society of mutated aliens.
Is that it?
I'm looking at Disney Plus.
Oh,
I can give you something slightly
no, that's all
longer.
right. That's fine. Beneath the Planet of the Apes. Next week, we hope that you can join us, but until then, we'll catch you next time.
Bye.
You have been listening to Cellulose Free. Your hosts were Colin, who produces and edits the show, and Thomas, who makes the artwork and music. Cellulose Free is recorded in the Deranged Cat Studios in scenic Tasmania, Australia. We keep track of our extensive physical media collection through My Movies, which we highly recommend. You can find links to that, as well as other places you can find us in the show notes. Cellulose Free is a Hi Hello production.
Beneath the Planet of the Apes. Beneath the Planet of the Apes. Next week, we hope that you... Oh, boy. We hope that you can join us, but until then, we'll catch you next time.
Bye. I baited everyone, and then I switched. It was incredible.